Hey there, my name's Taffy, and I am a huge DC fanboy. And if you're a DC fan like me, then you are probably familiar with the many highly acclaimed DC animated movies. There's been so many animated movies that have been made to carefully adapt comics from DC, which is pretty much how I got introduced to most of these characters, aside from the TV shows. These movies had a slight decline in quality over the years, especially when DC tried to make a cinematic animated universe, which they then dragged out to its painful death. But the movies that always stood out to me the most were the Batman films. Whilst I love most of the live-action Batman movies, I usually turn to the animated versions whenever I feel like entering Gotham City to watch Batman beat the shit out of a jaywalker. And since we're in the winter season, I thought it would be fitting to make a Batman-centric video because I think Batman and winter just go hand in hand, you know? Although most of these films adapted the staple Batman stories such as Year One, A Death in the Family, Hush, and The Dark Knight Returns, a few of these movies took some more weird and abstract angles, like the Batman vs. Dracula, which is surprisingly darker than it sounds, shout out to the comment section for putting me on, or Batman Ninja, which I don't even know what's going on here. And that time where Batman teamed up with another one of the world's greatest detectives, Scooby-Doo. I watched a couple of these many years ago as a kid, and I'll be watching and analysing the rest for the first time. Although some of these movies have funny titles or weird concepts, I want to see if they hold up as good films and give a genuine retrospective on these movies. If I crap on these movies and sound pretentious, it's not to be negative or just hate on them. I'm just passionate and probably care too much. If you've seen any of these movies, then let me know your thoughts, but if this is your first time, then hopefully you'll get inspired to check some of these out. Or don't. I don't care. I'm not your father. Why are you listening to me? Also, I suggest you get cozy, collect your snacks, your bev, maybe even a whole meal if you want, because this video is going to be a long one.
Will you show us a little bit of what you can do?
Yes, of course.
I also broke into this cinema so you guys could get some new scenery for this video, so we better hurry before Batman comes in here and kicks my ass. So with that being said, let's get started with the first movie. The Batman vs. Dracula is a tie-in movie related to the 2004 series The Batman. This movie was released straight to DVD in October of 2005, so it's got a real spooky atmosphere. The show did have a lot of dark and spooky vibes and definitely made me poop my pants a couple of times as a kid. I mean, have you seen the Man-Bat episode? But this movie takes it to a whole new level. One of the commenters in my last video recommended that I don't watch this movie at night for some reason, and I low-key took this as a personal dig at my manhood, so I watched it at 2 AM. The movie starts with a classic Arkham Asylum breakout, but this time, Joker and the Penguin have to race to Gotham Cemetery to collect a score of cash that's been hidden there. But as usual, the King of Aura won't let this slide as we see our first appearance of the Batman in a classic pose perched over a tall ledge in the rain. Batman intercepts the Joker, and although it's barely been 10 minutes, I'm already starting to get creeped out. Batman is looking very fed up with the Joker here, and even the Clown Prince of Crime isn't doing too much talking, except for him announcing that he's out for blood this time. The scenes flow really well here as the editor uses lightning flashes to cut between Batman's fight with the Joker and the Penguin as he gets closer and closer to the money. Penguin finds a tomb with a stone casket wrapped in red chains and cuts himself as he tries to open it, which introduces us to what once was Dracula. But Penguin's blood drops onto Dracula's decomposed carcass inside the tomb, and a really gross sequence begins as Dracula's heart starts to grow and beat. Ayo. Which is then followed by the rest of his flesh and ligaments growing back. So the Penguin gets the hell out of there, but Dracula follows him. Meanwhile, Joker ends up hanging off the edge of a bridge, but when Batman goes in to grab his hand, he notices an electrocution device on Joker's palm, so he refuses to dab him up and the Joker falls into the river, electrocuting himself to death. Well, that's one way to start a kid's movie. Back at the cemetery, Dracula then drinks a guard's blood and gains some XP, which allows him to finally catch up with the Penguin, who he then forces to be his servant, using some sort of mind control powers that he has. Dracula then explains how he was killed by the Transylvanians, and his remains were sent far away from the castle that he once used to rule, hence why he's in Gotham. But this doesn't seem to bother him too much, as Gotham will suffice as his brand new breeding ground. The following day, we see some classic Bruce Wayne interactions with Vicky Vale, as he has to cut short his dinner an interview with her to tend to some Batman issues. He patrols to look around for the Penguin, but ends up getting jumped by 3 vampires. Batman ends up having to punch so hard to the point where his gloves are torn and his knuckles are exposed, leaving him with a very narrow escape. Bruce hosts an event later on to promote a new solar supply by Wayne Tech, but the party is crashed by Dracula in disguise as Alucard? I don't remember why he called himself that. Dracula almost turns Bruce into a vampire, but Alfred gets in his way by trying to wingman Bruce into talking to Vicky. Bruce uses his wits to deduce the identity of Dracula, which, well, it really wasn't wits, Dracula spelled his name backwards at the party, it was pretty obvious, and he also figures out his plan to create an army of vampires and overthrow Gotham. Meanwhile, Gotham PD has wrongly accused Batman of being the culprit behind the missing people, and Dracula has also set his eyes on Vicky Vale, who he met at the party. This also leads to one of the weirdest lines in this movie where Penguin compliments Vicky's tits. Alright movie. Batman finally comes face to face with Dracula. Due to all the power he's gained from his victim's blood, Dracula is pretty much untouchable. He weaves every haymaker Batman throws, then folds him up pretty easily. But just before he bites him, the sun rises, requiring him to flee. Penguin checks on the sunset to see if he can wake up Dracula, but he bumps into the last person he expects to see, the Joker. Not gonna lie, this felt kinda like bullshit to me because he literally got electrocuted in water and sunk to the depths of the Gotham reservoir. But hey, it's a comic book movie, so if there's no body, it's a fake out death, and of course, that's got to be expected at all times. But as the Joker chases the Penguin into Dracula's lair, he gets turned. In the next scene, I see something that would have scared 7-year-old me to the core. Vampire Joker. Between you and me, I need a change of pants. Batman finds the Joker in a blood bank where they fight for a bit until he ends up covered in smashed vials of blood, which the Joker starts devouring like a rabid animal. Batman then goes through hell trying to find a cure to Dracula's vampirism, using his own blood as samples for the cure and using the Joker as his test subject. It's hard to watch at times as we see the Joker go through withdrawal, and the way how he's animated and paired up with Kevin Michael Richardson's performance, it really sells that he's going through genuine pain and agony, to the point where you almost pity him. I say almost because we're talking about the Joker here. So to keep the Joker from dying, Bruce provides him with his own blood. But once he finally cracks the code with the cure, he feeds the Joker a dosed version of the blood, reverting him to humanity, or the closest thing this cycle can be to being human. Unfortunately, this entire time Batman was in the trenches working on this cure, he had forgotten that he'd invited he forgot that he had invited Vicky Vale to his house for dinner, and he accidentally stood her up, allowing for Dracula to kidnap her on her way home. Dracula starts a really creepy ritual to use Vicky's body as a vessel for the soul of his deceased bride from when he used to run Transylvania. Batman ambushes Dracula's hideout with an arsenal of anti-vampire gear. He cures the lost ones of their vampirism, leaving one single bullet left to cure Dracula. But before Batman can shoot him, Dracula hits him with his mind control powers, which is basically just a knockoff Mangekyo Sharingan, and locks him in a genjutsu. But this does not hold Batman for long, as his willpower and memory of his parents fuel him with the strength to break free of the mind control. They throw hands, but Bruce isn't getting completely destroyed yet. He hangs with Dracula for a bit, mostly trying to weave and dodge his attacks, but we then see that he was secretly leading Dracula from the catacombs to the Batcave, where Alfred shoots him with the last of the cure. Unfortunately, it doesn't work because Dracula is quite literally the king of vampires, so he proceeds to beat up Batman some more. But before he can vampirize him, Bruce turns on the solar power source from earlier and evaporates Dracula, and throws in a final Detroit smash to finish the job. The movie ends with the lost ones being found, the Penguin getting caught with all the money and also being blamed for the kidnapping of the lost ones, and Vicky Vale clearing Batman's name. This movie lived up to all the hype you guys were giving it, I'm not gonna lie. It's a very good Batman story and I personally really enjoyed it. After about 10 minutes of watching the movie, I realized it made a lot of sense to pair up Batman with Dracula, since they're very similar in a lot of ways. They use fear-mongering to capture their victims, Dracula can literally transform into a bat, so yeah. Very fitting to make these two iconic figures go toe-to-toe as enemies and foils. Throughout the film, we keep getting reminded of the death of Thomas and Martha Wayne. It's implied that their death's impact on Bruce make him strong enough to withstand Dracula's mind control powers, but I don't really think it was that perfectly put together and just felt like they were chucking in these death scenes for no reason. I have nothing but good things to say about the visuals and the vibes of this movie. The series always had a pretty dark tone, so I'm assuming the team were happy to get more leniency when writing the script for this movie, as here there was lots of graphic blood. Even though it was mostly colored very dark, or in some cases blended in with very dramatic lighting, like in the Blood Bank where it was a mix of black and teal, I still felt very unsettled watching the Joker drink a fountain of blood in the bank. As a kid, I was terrified of the sight of blood in movies and TV shows, which meant I had a phobia of vampires by association. So this movie probably would have given me nightmares for a month. This movie's soundtrack also was phenomenal. The opening credits has really creepy music, and the Batman's classic guitar riff that would play in the series returned in this movie, noticeably whenever there was a close-up shot of him squinting. If you know, you know. Speaking of Batman, he was written pretty well here. In a previous video I made, I claimed that in most Batman comics he's overpowered, and whilst this is still somewhat true, I want to clarify that I prefer to watch Batman stories where he isn't given so much power. Batman essentially fails quite a lot in this film. He fails to save the Joker at the beginning of the movie, he can't get with Vicky Vale due to his responsibility to saving Gotham, he gets blamed for the kidnapping of all the lost ones who were vampirized, and he gets beaten up very badly by Dracula on multiple occasions. But he's so resilient and doesn't give up. And through his struggles and all the roadblocks that Bruce hits, he does save Gotham. That's why one of my favorite scenes in the movie is where he spends the entire night working on his cure to the vampirism. The Batman vs Dracula is a great movie. I wish I'd seen it as a kid because although I'm sure it would have traumatized me, I think it would have been a great experience. Okay, what do we have next? Okay, now this is a movie I saw when I was a kid. I was about 8 years old when my mum came home with a gang of knockoff DVDs. They included the Michael Bay TMNT movie, a couple of the 45 Barbie movies, some others that don't matter, and Batman Unlimited Animal Instincts. Out of all the DVDs I had, this is the one I watched the most. Batman Unlimited started off as a toy line, which pretty much only had some adverts and this trilogy of straight-to-DVD movies as its promotion, Animal Instincts being the only one I ever saw. They all had some sort of mecha gimmick, this one being about cyber animals. The last time I saw this movie was about 4 years ago, and although it wasn't as good as I remember it being, it was entertaining at least. So let's see if this lives up to my memory. The movie is set in a very futuristic looking version of Gotham City. There are neon lights everywhere, there are hologram news reports of an asteroid with a gold core passing by, and the grand opening of the Penguin's new building, which happens to be the tallest in Gotham. There are even flipping hover cards in this mug. Batman then shows up in a clean ass red and black suit. Wait, hold on. Something's not right here. Huh? Yo, Demetrius, are you sure this isn't Batman Beyond? Sorry bro, this is definitely not Batman Beyond. You sure? Cause you might have mixed up the footage. I am 100% sure. Okay. Batman glides through Gotham whilst a mecha wolf infiltrates Star Labs. He catches the wolf trying to steal some tech, and a fun little chase scene ensues, but the wolf escapes after causing a truck to overturn on the freeway. We then cut to Cheetah stealing some jewels, whilst Nightwing tries to stop her. Wait, sorry to pause again. Nightwing is voiced by Will Friedle in this movie. Wait, do you mean the Will Friedle? Like, from Boy Meets World? Yeah, my point was that he also voiced Terry McGinnis in Batman Beyond. Look bro, it seems to be a big misunderstanding. I didn't mess up the tapes, there's just a lot of coincidences here. Can we watch the movie now? Alright, my fault. Before Nightwing can even finish his fight with her, Killer Croc arrives as her backup. Now right off the bat, I have to mention that the animation in this movie has no reason to be this good. The character designs do a little bit too much in my opinion, but I digress. Before they ditch the scene, the Flash shows up. He's very quippy and Nightwing clearly doesn't rate him. However, I remember him being my favorite character in this movie, so we'll see how that goes. The Flash hits Killer Croc with a barrage of punches, which Croc describes as ticklish. He then proceeds to clothesline Flash into a case of jewelry like he's JBL. Cheetah then kicks the crap out of Nightwing and they escape. The running theme of animal villains continues as Silverback is caught by Green Arrow robbing a bank. Why is Green Arrow not in Star City, and why is the Flash just randomly in Gotham? We do not know. Silverback informs Green Arrow that he's part of a group called the Animalitia, hence all the animal-related crimes that had been taking place on the same night. Man-Bat and Batman join the fight, making it a 2-on-2, but just as they capture the two villains, a Mecha Tiger and a Mecha Bat jump in, allowing the villains to get away. We then finally meet the Penguin face to face, who is jacked for some reason. He's clearly been skipping leg day, but damn, this guy's upper body is insane. He walks past a group of degenerates who start clowning him for his looks, so Penguin assaults them to revive his torn ego. Back at the Batcave, we're introduced to my boy Tim Drake, the Red Robin, whilst Bruce tries to figure out the motive of the Animalitia. He notices a pattern that all the animal-related crimes create a circle around the Penguin's new building, which happens to be the tallest in Gotham, and luckily for Bruce, he was invited to the grand opening. Bruce goes there to do some undercover recon. He links up with Jim Gordon, who's already suspicious of things, and once Bruce meets the Penguin, he pretty much gets ignored during the entire conversation before Penguin announces his newest business venture with Dr. Kurt Langstrom and the Bumbershoot Mechanics' cyber animals to his guests. Who the hell's idea was it to call them Bumbershoot? He realizes, however, that the Haas aren't messing with him at all and kicks everybody out of the event by force. Now, I have something real quick to say. This might be the stupidest thing I've ever seen a criminal do. These animals have been caught being involved in crimes on multiple occasions, and now Penguin is announcing his involvement in the manufacturing of them. I don't know who or what's stupider. Penguin for doing this, or Batman for not showing the evidence of the cyber animals to Commissioner Gordon ASAP and getting the Penguin arrested.
You stupid.
Batman and Red Robin deduce that the next crime will take place at Gotham Zoo, so they call the others to the scene so they can take down the Animalitia. They split up and fight the individual members of the group on some Scooby-Doo gang type stuff. They capture the crooks, but once again the cyber animals are called in like Deus Ex Machinas, and the Bat helps them escape whilst the Wolf and Tiger chase Batman in his Batmobile. The gang defeat the robots in the chase sequence, then take them back to the Batcave so they can be studied. To get some more info, they decide to find Langstrom so they can figure out Penguin's plan. So Batman, Nightwing, and Green Arrow infiltrate Bumbershoot Mechanics. A kerfuffle starts and Silverback gets blown up by some explosive arrows, and when the smoke clears, it's revealed that he's not a real gorilla, but another cyber animal. Batman captures Man-Bat, who we find out is Langstrom. They temporarily transform him back into being human so that he can assist the team with stopping the Penguin. The Penguin's building works as a tractor beam which will pull the passing meteor in to hit Gotham City directly. The locations surrounding the building have devices that will create a massive force field surrounding Penguin's building to keep it safe, so that once the asteroid hits, he can use the cyber animals to collect the gold from its core. Penguin then reveals his plan to the entirety of Gotham once again. Okay, again, I have some issues with this. Why does he think that anybody will trade with him after committing a massive act of terrorism? Maybe Gotham will be destroyed, but the rest of the world will not see eye to eye with Penguin after doing something like this, and they'll definitely band together to stop him. I know money can solve a lot, but this is insane. Anywho, Batman and the Flash break inside of the force field and hack the 3 cyber animals they stole to be on their side, allowing them to turn off the force field. They're also able to override the controls for Penguin's army of cyber animals, which shuts them all off. Dr. Langstrom's time runs out and he transforms back into Man-Bat, but is able to gain control over himself in his mutated state and use his power to help their heroes because Red Robin tells him to believe in himself or something like that. Penguin dips in an escape pod, leaving the Animalitia to get dealt with by the heroes. They can't reverse the asteroid from hitting Gotham, so instead, they remap the force field so that it covers the entirety of Gotham, and they make a new device which Man-Bat will hold up the beacon to draw the asteroid in faster so when it hits, Gotham will be safe from it. Okay, this is also kind of weird because Gotham isn't an island. What about the debris? Won't it hit the other ends of the other cities or something? I don't know. This is a kids movie, so of course the plan works, and it also somehow cures Langstrom from his Man-Bat condition. Also, I'm assuming all the budget and effort went into animating the fight scenes because the shot of Langstrom in the Batwing looks like they just zoomed in a PNG on Premiere Pro. The movie ends with everyone saying their goodbyes, the Animalitia going to prison, the Cyberwolf becoming Ace the Bat-Hound/Bat-Cycle, and Penguin accidentally shooting his escape pod to Antarctica, where he's able to live with his own kind. Unfortunately, I don't have as many good things to talk about when reviewing this movie. This is exactly how I would define a movie for a kids-centric audience rather than a family audience. The fight scenes and animation for the most part are really good. I can't complain at all, as they really put in the effort when trying to make this movie look good and feel action-packed. It feels kind of weird seeing Bruce Wayne in a futuristic Gotham City, but it does make a lot more sense based on the crazy plot, which would definitely look weird in a more grounded and classic-looking Gotham. The voice acting is also a massive talking point for this movie, because every voice actor in this movie is not only a well-known veteran, but they also didn't half-ass their performances either. As you can probably tell, I wasn't impressed with the story at all. Once again, this movie is more of an advertisement for the toy line, so they clearly didn't try their hardest to making the best story of all time. But hey, it could have been worse. It could have ended up like He-Man or some shit. The Penguin's plot made absolutely no sense though. His motivations for it made sense since literally nobody is willing to accept him, so his wealth is kind of all he has. But did he really expect to get away with this insane plot even if Batman failed to beat him? I don't know. Maybe if there was a subtle storyline about corruption within the criminal justice system in Gotham, like, you know, the Batman or the Court of Owls, then I could see how Penguin would believe this would work. But no, he just wants money and to watch his ops burn. The heroes are all just centered on stopping the issue at hand, and there are certain developments with some of them, like Nightwing learning to respect the Flash, or Red Robin who helps Langstrom control his power. But Batman is kind of just there to be overpowered. He also had 3 3 suit changes throughout the film, which is obviously to sell more action figures, but I have to respect the fact that these character designers had to create 3 turnarounds for all 3 of these Batman attires. Other than this, I remember liking this movie as a kid, so they succeeded at their job. However, I struggled a bit to watch this movie all the way through, and I even had to put on 1.5 speed just so I could finish it. I don't really see why any of you guys would want to watch this movie in your own time, but I probably will never watch it again, I'm gonna be honest. So to get a complete change in pace, let's get on to our next movie. Watching this movie was the first time I ever questioned what drugs felt like, because I felt like I was low-key tripping on acid when I first watched this movie. Batman Ninja came out in 2018, and I don't even know whose idea it was to make this. It's a story where Batman gets transported from modern-day Gotham to feudal Japan, and where the rest of the Bat family and rogues all appear samurai-ified. That is not a real word. It was written by Kazuki Nakashima, who wrote a lot of the Kamen Rider movies and shows. I tried watching this movie back in 2018, but I used to be an anime CGI hater, so I never finished it all the way through. But this time, I will give this movie its fair chance, which I think that it deserves. We start right in the middle of the action as Gorilla Grodd is doing some weird Frankenstein shit in Arkham Asylum. Batman tries to stop him whilst Catwoman is kinda just enjoying the show and narrating to the audience. But before we even get 2 minutes in, Batman already gets transported to feudal Japan as he failed to stop Grodd's device from going off. Immediately, I want to say this movie looks really good. I honestly was a pretty stupid nitpicker back in the day because this movie has a lot of creative shots that look like it took extensive effort to get right. But the lip sync in this movie is gonna be a little off at times because it was originally made in Japanese then dubbed in English. They do anime style lip syncing where there aren't fully defined mouth shapes, and somehow it looks worse than the way I lip sync my own animations. Batman gets ambushed by samurai who are given orders by their boss to kill him on sight. They don't reveal who they work for, but I think we can get a pretty good hint from their masks. Batman beats them up and decides to go and investigate what's going on. He finds the base of these samurais and finds Joker and Harley Quinn leading them. Joker has been given the moniker of Dairoku Tenmao, or the Demon King, I'm so sorry for butchering that, which he didn't seem to question in the slightest as he saw the opportunity to seize power and grabbed it. They fight, and once again I am disappointed in my old self. The animation is really good, and so is the character design. The Joker is extremely expressive whenever he monologues and he pretty much never stands still. Joker then takes a sake break whilst Batman gets jumped by the samurai, but of course Batman beats them all up and glides away. Another quick stop, but I need to show some appreciation for the background art and the cinematography. There are so many beautiful backgrounds in this movie that either consist of hand paintings or 3D assets integrated into those paintings. Like, look at this shot of Batman hiding under the bridge like a sleeping bat whilst the samurai search for him. This needs to be on my wallpaper immediately. Batman meets Japanese Catwoman and discovers that some of the villains who were swept up in Grodd's time machine were sent back a few years before him, allowing them to assume the positions of lords of certain states in Japan, due to it being a feudal period. The villains are trying to rewrite history and take control of Japan, but the closest one to doing it at the moment is the Joker. Batman disguises himself as a missionary to try and stay out of the limelight, but the dumbest part of his disguise is that he has his haircut into the shape of a bat on the crown of his head. I don't think I need to say why this is a terrible addition to his disguise, but I digress. Joker is already messing up the timeline, but Bruce isn't alone in his venture to stop the villains, as Alfred is here, looking like an elderly Paul Heyman with that weak-ass man bun. He's here because he stowed away in the Batmobile during the night of the time machine. Before they can devise a proper plan of attack though, the Joker's samurai shoot cannons at the hideout, so Bruce has to attack head-on. But Joker has used his time in Japan wisely, and has weaponized his castle by making it transform into a giant mech. Bruce reaches Joker's floor, but the Joker threatens to squash a helpless mother and child, so Batman goes to rescue them. But out of nowhere, Bane just shows up and he's a sumo wrestler now, which is pretty fitting since his character design was originally inspired by luchadors. Throughout the sequence, the Batmobile has transformed from the classic supercar to the Batwing, to then the Batcycle, and now the armored Batmech, so Batman can hang with Bane. Batman yeets Bane away, but then his armor gets crushed. He tells the mother to run to safety, but she's actually just Harley Quinn in disguise, who hits the stuff out of Batman with her mallet. But before Batman's story ends, a swarm of bats appear accompanied by bat ninjas. They evacuate and reveal themselves to be Nightwing and Red Robin. Damn, how many people made this time jump? They've been affiliating with a bat clan of ninjas who follow prophecy foretelling that for a ninja wearing a mask of a bat will restore order in Japan. Batman reunites with Robin, who brings him a message from Grodd. Batman and Grodd then meet at night, where Grodd asks to team up with Batman so they can get back to the present. He claims that the machine was supposed to teleport the other villains away from Gotham so he could just take over it by himself, but Batman's interference caused the machine machine to bug out and send them back in time. Due to the Joker having a piece of the device, Batman decides to use himself as bait. They link up with the Joker in the waters the next day and try to spring an ambush on him, but Joker just squad wipes Batman's army while they're swimming underwater. But apparently this was all part of the plan, as Batman reveals a ship and they use decoy ninjas so the Joker would waste a bunch of ammo. The Batclan then jump aboard Joker's ship and attack. The ninjas are smoking Joker's team, and then Batman gets his hands on Joker and he starts piecing him up so badly he practically hits him with an air juggle. They tie up Joker and his crew, and Grodd tries to double cross Batman with his mind control gear. But when that doesn't work, Grodd gets Two-Face to blow up the ship. Catwoman then decides to join Grodd so she can get back to the future, which I guess I can't really blame her for doing. And whilst Two-Face's cannons don't immediately destroy the ship, Joker wriggles free and lights an explosive barrel, blowing it up so he can finally kill Batman, even if it means killing himself. We still have about 45 minutes of this movie left, so of course Bruce pulls through. He starts to question himself, asking himself who Batman is without his technology, and does he even deserve to lead the Batclan after so many of them died or got injured under his lead when they failed to foresee Grodd's betrayal. But this isn't going to stop Bruce. He is going to adapt and use whatever he has, like he always does, and fight to win. So they begin their plan to get back home, but this time fighting the villains like ninjas. Meanwhile, Red Hood finds where the Joker and Harley have been hiding out since the explosion. This scene is animated in a very beautiful watercolor style with 2D animation rather than cel-shaded 3D, but the beauty is then completely contrasted with the content of the scene, as Red Hood beats up the Joker and Harley, who clearly have some sort of amnesia from the explosion. So it feels pretty messed up watching this scene. He's about to shoot the Joker in the head, but Batman steps in and stops it. Batman talks to the amnesiac Joker, but Red Hood still doesn't believe that he's actually lost his memory. Joker claims that him working the land somehow makes him feel like he's draining any bad qualities that are within him. Through Batman's long relationship with the Joker, he can tell that this isn't another trick. His usual tells aren't there, as whenever Joker would play tricks like this, he can never fully mask the madness in his eyes. But here, he actually seems genuine. But as soon as Batman and Red Hood leave, we see the Joker and Harley start harvesting a plant, and they begin to laugh, and Joker rubs blood around his mouth, and his and Harley's laughing goes from pure joy to being more disingenuous and maniacal. We skip forward by a month, and Grodd is ready to take back the missing pieces of his device from the other villains, starting a massive castle mech war, making it the perfect opportunity for the Batclan to strike. The Bat family take to the skies with gliders, but Grodd ends his allegiance with Two-Face and throws his entire mech at them. He defeats the criminals and uses his mind control device to control them, and reveals that he's manipulated them into creating the mechs in the first place by providing the technology allowing for Grodd to create a ginormous Megazord so that he can become the Shogun of Japan and rewrite history, making it into a kingdom of monkeys. Yep. But before he can activate the Megazord, Joker and Harley return to add to the chaos, regaining their stolen castle by throwing Grodd and Catwoman to their deaths and controlling the Megazord. Batman catches Grodd and Catwoman, but Joker shoots a gang of explosives at the Bat family, and as the debris almost kills Robin, Gorilla Grodd jumps in the way and takes the brunt of the attack. Joker thinks he's won, so he takes a nap, but Grodd gives Batman a flute which can control all of his monkeys so that he can defeat the Joker. Robin summons millions of monkeys to swarm the Megazord. He then orders the monkeys to somehow merge together and create a giant-sized monkey. How the hell does this even work? Anywho, Joker tries to burn them all to death with massive flamethrowers, but the bats are then summoned to shield the monkeys, and then the bats and monkeys merge, turning into a giant Batman. Giant Batman destroys the Joker's Megazord, and the Bat family each take on a villain one-on-one. The Joker and Batman have a final fight, samurai style. Now I know I've been poking fun of this movie for a while and making my jokes, but this fight is genuinely brilliant. It's super intense and has amazing choreography. The dialogue between each blow is very good. And once their swords break, Batman starts doing fucking jutsus and he uses the bats as clones to confuse the Joker before finally defeating him, very similar to how he was defeated in The Dark Knight. And with that, the heroes return to their time and they get back to their lives. I can strongly say that lots of effort was put into creating Batman Ninja. Unlike Batman Unlimited or Batman vs. Dracula, this movie took a massive risk by having such a different take on Batman. It's still all the same Batman characters that you know and love, but the differences in setting forces them to adapt to the in-world Japanese culture, but also forces the audience to adapt to the very anime-esque style of cinematography and action as well. As an anime fan, I already knew what I was getting myself into, and I love the art direction of this film. Shout out to Takashi Okazaki. The film feels like a classic action action ninja movie, so I would compare it to something like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. There's a lot more focus on the action, whilst the story is kinda just there to support it. I know I made fun of some of the stuff that happens, but honestly, the visuals are so good that it doesn't even matter how bizarre some of these scenes actually are. The movie's kind of a hybrid anime film, as the main characters are mostly animated with 3D cel-shaded models, whilst the background characters are hand-drawn. But then in certain scenes, there are main characters that get animated in 2D, such as at the end when Catwoman is animated in 2D and Batman isn't. I'm assuming that this is because of the complexity of his design, which has so much armor in different pieces, which would have been very difficult to draw frame by frame. My favorite scene in the movie has to go to the Batman and Red Hood meeting the amnesiac Harley and Joker, as the art and animation are just so painterly and beautiful, and it's everything I like about animation. But the final fight between the Batman and the Joker was so good that it might be one of the best final fights I've seen in the Batman animated discography. I was genuinely on the edge of my seat the entire time, and I was audibly shocked at several moments in the fight. Also, it was pretty refreshing to see Damian Wayne being characterized as an optimistic and friendly kid, rather than an unlikable prick. This movie isn't perfect, and the contrasting reviews and many different opinions on it can definitely show you that, but I think that it's a good watch, and if you're looking for a fun action movie to see, it won't disappoint.
Just the next step of the operation.
Hey y'all, how you doing? It's Demetrius here. I just wanted to remind y'all to subscribe to the channel and leave a like if you enjoyed the video. We're getting close to 10,000 subs, so we'd really appreciate it. But the big announcement for today is that if you guys like Taffy's videos and want to have more in-depth convos with each other than just in the comment section, then pull up to the brand new Discord server. Yeah, that's what we on now. Talk about cartoons, movies, comics, anime, games, all the videos. He'll be there from time to time and stream himself making videos or art. It'll be lit. You can suggest videos, send your art, promote your own grind, and just have some fun. It's free, so pull up. Alright, thanks for listening. Subscribe, like, do all that. Peace.
Hey there, content ID, don't copyright me please. I really would like the money, please.
I don't even know where to start with my exposition for this movie. It came out in 2018 and is a crossover between Scooby-Doo and Batman, particularly the Batman from the 2008 series Batman the Brave and the Bold. Warner Brothers have been releasing Scooby-Doo movies for years, and there's a very large catalogue of around 48 films. So I'm assuming that they ran out of ideas and they just decided to throw in the most recent Batman cartoon adaptation in this movie, even though the show ended 7 years before the movie's release. Funnily enough, this isn't the first time that the Mystery Gang has worked with Batman. In 1972, there was a special episode where Scooby-Doo got to meet Batman. And I know about this because my parents bought me the DVD for it back in the day, and although I'd much rather watch that, we're talking about feature-length films here, so unfortunately, special episodes don't make the cut. But I'll stop stalling now so we can get into this movie. We start with Scooby and Shaggy getting chased by some ventriloquist monster or whatever the hell this guy is. It's a classic Scooby-Doo scenario where Scooby and Shaggy are the bait whilst the others set up a trap and capture the monster. But the trap isn't ready by the time the guys lead the monster in, so when they're about to get murdered, Batman saves the day. When the gang asks why he's here, Batman says, "I go wherever puppet-related crime rears its ugly head." Bro, what? When was Batman ever a specialist in puppet-related crime? The guys defeated Scarface, and that's pretty much the only one. Batman tells the Mystery Gang to piss off because these kids should leave the mystery solving to the pros. And right off the bat, I can tell I'm probably gonna dislike this version of Batman. I'm gonna assume that the voice actor was given terrible direction, because it sounds like Batman's lines in this movie were generated from character AI. This isn't even the fault of Brave and the Bold, because Batman was actually a good character in that series. But here, he feels like a caricature. The group struggles to beat up the puppeteer as they constantly get in each other's ways. They then leave the abandoned theater, and Fred knocks down the entrance, trapping the monster in wires and cables. The gang then go on to give exposition as to how they got in this situation in the first place by fucking explaining it. Literally the worst way to give exposition. They then take off the villains' masks and reveal them to be Martian Manhunter and Detective Chimp, which reveals to us that this was actually a test from Batman to see if they were ready to join his organization, the Mystery Analysts of Gotham. I have so many questions, but we aren't going to get through this movie if I keep interrupting it, so I'll let it slide. But as Batman takes the gang with him to work on some cases, we see a mysterious red-cloaked ghoul watch them from the sidelines. After some opening credits, we cut to Batman stopping the Riddler amidst the bank robbery. Riddler brings him back up, but so does Batman to even the odds. Hey, it's my boy the Question, I haven't seen this guy in ages. They beat up the villains, and Batman and the Question go to the MAG meeting, but leave Aquaman behind because nobody likes him. The Mystery Gang also head to the meeting, but Shaggy must have smoked up earlier because he has the munchies, even though he'd apparently eaten a whole menu from a mini-mart earlier. They link up at the spot and they meet the rest of the group, including Black Canary and Plastic Man. They allow the noobs to pick the next case for them to solve, but when they choose Batman's only unsolved case, he tells them it's off limits. But before any follow-ups can be made, a disguised Aquaman breaks in and tries to act like a detective so he can be included in the group. They indulge his nonsense for a bit, but they have to respond to a mystery at Gotham Chemical Storage. The Mystery Gang are leading the case, so Fred tells everyone to split up and look for clues. Plastic Man tries to go with Daphne and even starts flirting with her. Wait, hold on a second. Hell no, lock this guy up right now. But the mysterious figure from the start of the movie returns, calling himself the Crimson Cloak. He claims that Batman is the one who did this to him, and that he will wreak havoc on Gotham. Cloak tries to kill them all and blows up the entire storage building, but fails to harm anybody. Batman tells the teens to leave the scene, and whilst they hang out in a diner, Detective Harvey Bullock shows up with photo evidence of their van being at the scene of the crime, and accuses them of being involved in the robbery. But before he can arrest them, Batman gets rid of him. Batman then reveals to them the contents of his unsolved case. It took place in his first year of crime fighting as he tried to stop Professor Milo from using a teleportation device. One of Milo's two henchmen, Leo Scarlet, was sucked into the machine, supposedly dying. Batman suspects that the Crimson Cloak is the father of Scarlet seeking revenge. Milo is off the suspect list because apparently he was killed by rats or something, so yeah. But when looking at the name of the one surviving henchman, Daphne deciphers his name, Dr. Wade Magny, and rearranges it to spell Edward Nygma, aka the Riddler. They go to Arkham Asylum to question him. He toys with them but doesn't give them away any useful information. Shaggy and Scooby had already run away, but they were entranced by the food court. But before the others can reach them, the Crimson Cloak shuts off the power, which allows all the cells to be opened. Batman takes out 5 guys with one single batarang, and the gang flee. Meanwhile, Shaggy and Scooby start a food fight with the inmates, then bump into the others. We get some classic Scooby-Doo chase action, but they finally escape the asylum and lock up the inmates. Scooby-Doo finds a footprint which Batman freezes and takes as evidence. But when they return to the mystery van, Bullock and the MAG come to arrest them, because they find some stolen vials from the chemical storage in the back of the van, and it also looks like Batman and the Mystery Gang had let out the villains in Arkham. So this time we get a vehicle chase. Scooby takes the wheel and almost kills multiple innocent people whilst driving. They lose the MAG members, but they hit a dead end in an alleyway where Bane and another inmate surround them. But Scooby-Doo and Shaggy do some weird nonsense with glizzies, which somehow gets the gang out of the villain's grasp. If anyone can explain this joke to me, please let me know in the comments because I had no idea what I was watching. But we still can't catch a break because the gang accidentally drive into the secret hangout for Gotham's rogues, where we see the Joker and the Penguin hanging out with the C-listers. The crew shake off the bad guys by ditching the mystery machine for the Batmobile, then get intercepted again by Martian Manhunter and Plastic Man, who are easily evaded. Batman takes the gang to the Batcave as there's nowhere else for them to go until he can help them clear their names. When they arrive in the cave, they check the news to find that someone has sent the police a video of Shaggy stealing from the Gotham chemical storage. But to the audience of Mystery Inc., we can easily tell that this isn't Shaggy due to him completely ignoring a massive platter of food. Batman decides to go to Professor Milo's lab to look for more clues. Whilst he investigates in the field, he asks Velma to run tests on the footprint sample that they got from Arkham, and he uses his dehydrator to make Shaggy and Scooby-Doo some miniature food so they won't starve to death. He gets to the location and Aquaman comes to his aid, as he's the only hero who believes that Batman and the Mystery Gang are innocent. They go in and hear rustling, only for it to be the Question, who had deduced that the Mystery Gang are also innocent. Out of nowhere, CC pulls up and captures all 3 heroes. Meanwhile, back at the lab, the mud footprint is sentient now and attacks the gang. Also, can someone please do a gang counter in the comments, because jeez. The gang trap the mud in a dehydrator and it loses its sentience. Meanwhile, Batman and Aquaman are being held captive by the Cloak, whilst the Question has been knocked out. Before CC can kill Batman, the gang arrive dressed in the costumes of the Bat family so they wouldn't get identified on their way over. They kick his ass and dehydrate him and save the day. The Crimson Cloak is revealed to be Clayface, and he was working with the Riddler this whole time, who was posing as the Question since the bank robbery at the beginning of the movie. But the Riddler doesn't get back that easily, and he turns on a giant version of the device, threatening to destroy Gotham City. But the Question returns and knocks him out and goes to shut it off. Before he does so, Batman hears a name being whispered, and a silhouette appears from the machine. Batman and Scooby pull the figure out, and it's Leo Scarlet, who finally gets to reunite with his father, finally solving Batman's unsolved case. Okay, before I get into the analysis and review of this film, I want to clarify that I am definitely not the demographic for this movie, and that this is definitely more of a Scooby-Doo film that just has Batman as a guest star. But I'm still gonna criticize it because A, that's what you're here for, and B, I think that using a child target audience as the excuse for a film being flawed isn't fair. I took a lot of shots at this movie for its interpretation of Batman, but I want to take some of them back. Whilst this movie is extremely campy and takes inspiration from the earlier on-screen adaptations of Batman, such as the Adam West series and old cartoons which were inspired by the Silver Age comics, I think it did a decent job at adapting Batman. In the beginning, I made fun of the voice acting direction and was scared that Batman would end up being just a caricature and not an actual character. But to my surprise, they actually gave him some stuff to work with. Throughout this movie, Batman is haunted by the unsolved case because it was the only person he couldn't save. I felt like he was actually guilty for not saving Leo Scarlet, and it allowed me to empathize with the character. But yet again, the voice acting still didn't make it that easy for me to buy his pain. I don't blame the voice actor because most of the time it depends on how these actors are directed. His delivery pretty much only worked whenever he would say these silly 60s one-liners, but Aquaman's ones were definitely the best. He was hitting us with like the full word alliteration and everything. The ending was very Scooby-Doo-esque, and I was pretty annoyed by it, not gonna lie. This isn't because I failed to predict the culprit, because I actually think that twist villains are much better when you're shocked by the result. I mean, who would have thought, right? I was annoyed because it felt cheap rather than rewarded. So instead of going, oh yeah, I went, oh come on. The Riddler switching with the question felt like a decent reveal, but Clayface's reveal felt a little arse-pulley to me. If I wasn't a diehard Batman fan and only knew the character from face value, and then I just hear about this Clayface guy at the end of the movie, I definitely wouldn't feel much payoff or gratification. And even as a Batman fan who knows of this character, I still didn't get that feeling of gratification when he got unmasked. You get me? But whatever, it's not that deep, it's a Scooby-Doo movie. The action was kinda mid, that's another thing I wanted to say, and my biggest issue with the movie was that it wasn't scary. At all. In my day, I've watched a good amount of Scooby-Doo animated movies and shows, so I know that they have the capability of being at least a little spooky. But this film wasn't even a tad scary. Okay, I've shit on this movie aimed at 6-year-olds for long enough. Let's get on to the next one. We're going with a complete vibe switch with this one, so prepare yourself. Batman Gotham by Gaslight is a 2018 DC animated film adapting the 1989 comic written by the late Brian Augustyn and illustrated by one of my favorite artists, Mike Mignola. Apparently the movie and comic have very big differences in their plot. The film's story follows an Elseworld version of Gotham in the Victorian period, where Batman has to investigate the murders of Jack the Ripper. Funnily enough, the one-shot comic this film adapted came out in the same year as Alan Moore's From Hell, another comic adapting the true story of the Jack the Ripper killings. And with this context being brought to light, I'm actually really interested in watching this movie, so let's get started. We open in Victorian Gotham and immediately are in some club where we meet Poison Ivy, who is a belly dancer. Now I would usually leave details like this out because I don't want to get upcutted by YouTube, but this is relevant to the story as Ivy becomes the first victim of Jack the Ripper. We then cut to 3 boys robbing an elderly couple of aristocrats that same night. And if you pay attention to their names, you'll realize that these boys are Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, and Tim Drake, Batman's first 3 Robins. Before they rob the couple, Batman shows up and intervenes. The guy who forces these kids to become street urchins steps out of the shadows and asks Batman to run his fade, but then Batman picks him up. He finds out the boys are orphans and tells them to go to the church to seek refuge, and to stop their groomer from chasing down these kids, he breaks his leg. He then hears the screams of a woman and springs into action, but unfortunately he's too late, finding the bloody corpse of Poison Ivy in the back of an alleyway. The next day, we are introduced to more of Gotham's high society members as they attend the preview of Gotham's World Fair. We see a lot of familiar faces such as Jim Gordon, Chief Harvey Bullock, Harvey Dent, and Hugo Strange. I only just realized that both Harvey Bullock and Dent have the same first name. Cool. Selina Kyle shows up to challenge the police department and the mayor on how they're going to deal with Jack the Ripper. And just as the conversation turns to blame Batman, Bruce Wayne arrives. He talks to Gordon and sister Leslie Tompkins about the Jack the Ripper killings. But later that night, Selina walks through the Gotham streets alone, whilst Batman watches from afar. She turns into different paths but finds them blocked off, then turns around to see Jack the Ripper ominously following her. She runs into a slaughterhouse and he catches up, where she reveals her whip and they fight. She disarms him of his knife, but he gets a hold of the whip and strangles her, but Batman swoops in and they start throwing hands. Now Jack is surprisingly skilled in hand-to-hand combat and actually beats up Batman to a point where he's even slumped in a corner. He then goes to stab Selina, but Batman pulls a lever to a trapdoor and the killer falls through. Instead of thanking Batman Batman for saving her, she yells and reprimands him for stopping her from getting him. But this is the least of Batman's problems. Batman goes to pay a visit to Jim Gordon at his home, who can't sleep due to a nightmare he had of his wife being slaughtered. Batman warns Gordon that they're dealing with a serious and calculated threat here, and not just a madman, and asks for his help in taking him down. Although Gordon is reluctant to help the Knight for obvious reasons, he gives Batman a letter written to the Gotham Gazette by the Ripper. He also offers to leave some reports for Batman on the roof of the police department building as long as he never shows up to his house again. The following evening, Bruce tries to analyze the letter, but to very small outcomes. He goes out that night with Harvey Dent to the theater, but instead of seeing Hamilton, they watch Selina Kyle star in a risque musical number. Dent is not as likable of a character in this film, as in this scene he pretty much fantasizes about having an affair with his wife, with Selina Kyle, and seems to have zero remorse for it. They invite Selina to a night out and end up in one of Bruce's clubs. Bruce and her start to bond over their shared relationships with Leslie, which causes Bruce to realize that her relation to the poor woman of Gotham could lead her to getting targeted by the Ripper. He ditches Selina and Harvey and makes his way to the church as fast as possible, but unfortunately Bruce is too late and finds Leslie's corpse in the church graveyard. Bruce immediately goes into hermit mode as a reaction to Leslie's death, with Alfred struggling to talk him out of it. Quick side note, I really love how they handled this, by the way. They haven't said how long Bruce has been Batman in this film, but we can tell from the mixed reactions from people and his first encounter being with Gordon only a few days ago that he's fairly new to this. So because he's still developing as Batman, it can be seen in his mourning as he immediately turns to vengeance rather than taking the time to grieve. And Bruce uses this as a reason to spend more time as Batman, so nothing like this can happen again under his watch. After attending Leslie's funeral, Bruce is approached by Hugo Strange, claiming to know Jack the Ripper's true identity. He asks Bruce to have Batman come to his lab at midnight to give him the information, but during this discussion, Jason tries to pickpocket Alfred but gets caught. Before Alfred gives them up to the cops, Dick tells him how Leslie was the only one who would feed them when they were hungry as she took them off the streets, so Alfred offers them odd jobs so they can afford a living. Batman goes to meet Strange later that night, but as he starts to look around, he hears his screams echoing throughout Arkham. He then finds the Ripper holding Strange above his head, then throwing him into a pit full of patients, who tear him apart and, by the looks of it, start eating him. Batman and the Ripper then chase each other on the rooftops of Gotham, and eventually duke it out on a blimp whilst the police search for him, as the Arkham wardens reported Batman after seeing him in the asylum near Strange's corpse. The blimp sets on fire as the cops start to shoot at it, and Batman and the Ripper jump off and separate once again. Batman tries to disguise himself whilst the police close off the streets looking for him, and is then helped by Selina Kyle, who takes him in her carriage. When the cops order to open up, they pretend to smash and get away with it, but they then actually make love, and the next morning Bruce gets arrested for the murders of the women in Gotham. All of his high society homies switch up on him, and due to the lack of alibis and clear connections with certain victims, Bruce is imprisoned in Blackgate with no bail. Okay guys, so this is a massive spoiler warning. The movie is a murder mystery, so I'm assuming some of you who haven't seen it might want to watch it yourselves, and for those who don't care, I guess keep watching. If you do care, I recommend you skip to this timestamp after the reveal. You gone? Alright, let's go. Selina visits him and tells him to reveal his identity to Gordon, as the alibis he has as Batman will allow for him to be pardoned. However, when Bruce refuses, she goes to tell him himself. Bruce obviously won't let this happen and breaks out of Blackgate. Selina's told by Dent that Gordon is at Gotham's World Fair, so she goes after him. Also, I just want a side note, Harvey Dent is so hurt over Selina and Bruce smashing, bro. Like, he turns on them both so much, and I'd like to believe it's because he thinks Bruce is a murderer, but it seems like he's more salty that Bruce got to his girl. Meanwhile, Batman tries to find Gordon at his house, and he bumps into his wife, but he notices strange scratch marks underneath the rug, leading into a secret door that's under the stairs, which reveals a cellar with all sorts of surgical instruments, human organs in jars, and images of Gordon boxing and performing surgery, which finally reveals the mystery that Jim Gordon is Jack the Ripper. But before Bruce can even comprehend what's going on, his wife tries to kill him. But before Batman can comprehend anything that's going on, she then tries to kill him. But as she fails her attempt, she turns her other side of her head to reveal scars all over her face, and how her husband rids them of it. Back at the fair, we see it's empty, and Selina reveals the identity of Batman to Gordon, who then slowly unveils his bag and puts on his Ripper attire, attacking Selina. He injects her with a sedative, but the stab wound she gets from it allows her to paint blood onto a massive light at the fair, which she uses manages to temporarily blind Gordon and alert Batman of her location, creating the first bat signal. Gordon catches her and throws her into a Ferris wheel cage. He monologues about how he must rid Gotham of the filth and the scum that seems to constantly breed. To him, he cleans it of its thieves, its immigrants, the anarchists, but that's only when he's Gordon. As Jack, he cleans the city of the women who to him taint the city the most. But before he can dissect Selina, Batman crashes in through the window to save her. But as previously shown, the Ripper is a very skilled fighter and does not let up at all, giving Batman a very difficult fight. They accidentally set the carriages on fire by hitting the lanterns, and an oil spill at the bottom led to the whole Ferris wheel setting aflame as well. Batman knocks Gordon off the edge but pulls him up, allowing Gordon to cuff him, intensifying their fight even more, forcing them to stay more close and have no pauses. But as Gordon gets caught up in another monologue, Batman removes his end of the cuff and locks Gordon to a post on the carriage. But instead of letting himself be prosecuted, Gordon looks into Batman's eyes with a sick smirk, walking backwards into the flames and dying. The Ferris wheel falls over and Batman jumps off, but he injures himself. Before it hits the ground, Selina picks him up and they dive out of the way. Alfred and the Robins arrive by chariot and they pick up Bruce and Selina. They ride away as Gotham's fair burns to the ground. A place that was supposed to bring Gotham so much hope is now in ruins. But Dick says that it doesn't matter, as they together will build something new and something better. This movie was fantastic. The atmosphere and the twist villain, brilliant. Out of all the films I've seen on this list, it's probably the best one when combining all aspects of what makes a good movie. The writers created a near perfect twist villain, better than those of the Disney ones to come out in recent years. Except for Turbo. I fucked with Turbo. For a twist villain to work, it has to have the perfect balance in its hints and exposition. That way the reveal won't feel too far-fetched or meaningless, whilst also not being super obvious. The atmosphere in the movie is also spectacular, very dark, and it even makes some scenes extremely disturbing to watch, whilst the others, to me at least, are breathtaking. To no surprise, Gotham being set in the Victorian Gothic era is just a brilliant decision. It feels super gritty and doesn't feel out of place at all, kinda like how I felt with the Batman Unlimited Gotham. Whilst the art style is a little dry and could have some more flair by taking more inspiration from Mike Mignola's style, the action and the fight choreography to me was amazing. They went for a much more boxer-like style for the fight scenes, which makes a lot more sense since it's based in the Victorian era, where travelling abroad to learn every fighting style would have been a lot less practical or believable. Whilst the final fight held a lot of weight, my favourite was the fight on the blimp. The silhouetted part where Batman fought the Ripper felt super iconic, as Batman starts implementing more kicks after realising that the Ripper is more of a boxer. I might sound a bit pretentious here, but I want to say that the use of silhouettes here was done by the filmmakers to possibly suggest that there's a duality between these two masked miscreants who I'm not gonna say that. Between these two masked vigilantes who choose to take the law into their own hands to clean up the streets of Gotham, even if it's by the means of their own different and some twisted beliefs. And if you guys know me, I'm a Sam Liu glazer, and he worked on this movie, so I'm just gonna believe that he planned this all from the start, even though there are no sources backing it. Let me be delusional and believe my own headcanon, alright? The dialogue did feel a bit forced at times since they would go full old English mode, but other than that, I genuinely had a blast watching this film. It spooked me more than Batman vs Dracula, which shouldn't come as a surprise due to their different age ratings, and the fact that Batman is going up against a character based on a real life serial killer in this movie, instead of Dracula. But since this movie was so dark, I wanted to finish things off with a movie that has a much less gloomy tone, so that we can have a little more campy fun. Batman vs Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a 2019 animated film crossing over the titular characters. In this movie, they team up to defeat the Shredder, who's paired up with a classic Gotham rogue. If you ask me, this film is probably one of the less weird ones, since it's not like Batman hasn't dealt with his fair share of mutants and animal-themed characters before. But I put it on the list since, even when I was younger, I thought this movie was gonna be stupid. I am a big fan of Batman and of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but the idea of it felt very corporate to me and not like a movie that could actually be good. Kinda like Scooby and Batman, you know? But when I saw it, I had a very fun time, so hopefully I'll enjoy it this time just as much as before, or maybe even more. We start this movie with a girl who's on tour in a lab holding a super powerful generator, which the Foot Clan tried to steal before we can even get 5 minutes into the movie. The girl who's on this tour is Batgirl, and she's probably here to stop this exact thing from happening, but obviously the scientists in the room are weak as hell, so she gets outnumbered. So before she gets sliced up, Leonardo smoke bombs the joint and the Ninja Turtles start whipping some Foot Clan ass. They then disappear and leave her pretty confused. We then cut to Babs retelling the story to Batman, who's obviously trying to run the Foot Clan and the Turtles' fade after hearing about them being a new potential threat in Gotham. We enter the Batcave where Bruce reviews the security footage, finding out that these burglars are actually ninjas. These burglaries have been taking place at different major labs and research facilities, and Wayne Enterprises has been identified by the cops to be the next likely target for a robbery. But Bruce declines police assistance as he wants to handle it himself and see what the Bat family are up against. But to our surprise, the Penguin is outside the building, ready to steal from it so they can sell it to whoever's been robbing the other labs. Before the Penguin can even start this plan, his henchmen get taken out one after another by the Turtles. The Foot infiltrate the Wayne Enterprises building, but they're duped as all the workers are actually holograms. Damn bro, did you really need to stab the hologram that many times to check if it was real? Batman arrives and he beats up the Foot Clan, whilst the Turtles deal with the Penguin and his goons outside. I'm starting to get a little bit of Penguin fatigue, not gonna lie. This is the 5th movie appearance that he's had in this video. Anywho, he gets away pretty fast after his gang will get mollywopped, and hopefully I won't have to see this little guy again. Inside the building, Batman is putting the Foot Clan to shame, and not one of them are able to lay a single attack on him. He picks up one of the ninjas for questioning on their plans and who the metahumans are. The ninja then responds in confusion, revealing that the metahumans are actually turtles. But before he can say anything else, he gets headshotted with a ninja star. The aura levels in the room intensify out of nowhere as the camera pans up and we see the Shredder posted up in a windowsill looking very pissed off. After witnessing his ninjas ruin the Orokusaki name, he says, "Fuck this," and tries to leave, but Batman shoots his cable gun at him, letting him know that he isn't leaving here without a fight. So he says,
Fine, I'll do it myself.
As he jumps down to face Batman. Batman and Shredder fight, and this is one of the best I've seen in this video so far, definitely in the top 5. They go hit for hit, slam for slam, and there's no space to take a breath. They go in. I know I said this movie would be a lot more campy, but as you've seen already, I may have misjudged it a little bit. I forgot about some of these brutal fights and deaths that happen in this movie. Who was this actually marketed to now I'm thinking about it? No 8-year-old should be watching this. However, there is one thing that's confusing me in this fight, and that's the toughness of Shredder's blades. He was able to cut through the cable on Batman's rope launcher, which should be very difficult as it's able to lift multiple people's weight and probably enforced by Kevlar like everything else that Batman owns. But later on in the fight, Batman was able to break them with his talons. I'm just saying, there's a little bit of inconsistency there, but I'll let it slide. They both reach a double down moment where they catch a little breath, but when Batman goes for a flying attack, Shredder hits him with the finishing move from Kung Fu Panda 3 and absolutely slumps Batman. But instead of killing him whilst he's immobile, Shredder just tells him to back off. Bro, why? He's definitely gonna spin back. This is so stupid. After beating up the Penguin and his gang, the Turtles start bickering like, well, brothers, because that's what they are. And before Leo and Raph can get into another peak fight, which is something they usually do, Mikey sees the Batmobile, which completely redirects their attention. But out of nowhere, batarangs are thrown right past them as warning shots, I assume. Either that or Bruce has terrible aim. And then the Batman swoops down, landing in front of the car, which he turns the lights on to create this cool backlighting effect, which is pretty extra by the way. The Turtles mention how the Penguin mentioned a bat earlier, so they just try to jump Batman without even asking him any questions. I say try because Batman embarrassed them so much here, as they don't even fight as a team at all and just go in one by one to get destroyed. Once they realize there's no winning this fight, they smoke bomb the place and vanish. We cut to the Shredder entering a lair, where we see Baxter Stockman working on a device using the stolen parts. Ra's al Ghul then steps out of the shadows, and Shredder has to explain to Ra's why he's fallen short of obtaining the tech from Wayne Enterprises. Shredder calms him down by showing him an example of what the ooze can do, as Ra's offers up one of his soldiers to take it. He turns the soldier into a furry, and then Ra's monologues about how Gotham will be turned into animals and tear itself apart, and the rest of the world will soon follow. Bro, why does he want to do this? Okay, Gotham is a horrible place, but this is too far. And what did the rest of the planet do to you? What good reason could he have to want to destroy the world like this? I know Shredder's reasons. He wants to access the Lazarus Pit. But you? This isn't even greed, this is just pure evil. But hey, at least he didn't go around broadcasting it to the entire city before he was about to do it. Like some people. Stupid. But however, Robin eavesdrops and overhears his granddad's plan for extreme chaos. The Turtles try to figure out what Batman's deal is and whether or not they should include him on their hit list. But for some reason, Mikey just keeps glazing him. I mean, he is cold, but chill bro. Also side note, Raphael is voiced by Blaine from Glee. I genuinely wouldn't have guessed that in a million years. This is a really great performance. At Wayne Enterprises, Batman and Batgirl figure out that the bad guys are trying to create a device to control the mutagen that was used to create the Turtles. But whilst they're out, the Turtles find the Batcave. Also sorry, but this is kind of bullshit. How the hell did they just find the Batcave? The movie tries to explain it by having Donatello rant with big words, but Leonardo even cuts him off mid-explanation, which shows that even the writers know that it makes no sense. But they need to move the story along somehow, so I guess this was the easy way out. Donnie tries to say that all of the Batman's reported sightings create a circumference around the Batcave, which is absolute nonsense because why would Batman only choose to fight crime surrounding the Batcave? I'm sorry, but stupid writing like this usually gets me very riled up, even though I probably wouldn't have done a better job myself. They'll start fucking with Batman stuff, but Damian rocks up and starts beating them up. Rightfully so, since they're literally trespassing. Batman shows up and stops the party, and finally the Turtles and Bat Family get on the same page. Meanwhile, Ra's and Shredder infiltrate Arkham Asylum to break out the Joker. I have a lot of issues with Arkham Asylum as a facility, so I won't talk about it here, but if you guys want a video on that, let me know. And if you don't want the video, you think I care? I'm still gonna make it. The Turtles and Bat Family get some character bonding time, and it's pretty entertaining to watch. Donnie and Batgirl create the anti-ooze, and Leo and Batman spar. It's a pretty fun time. I enjoy the banter between them, especially since Batman acts like a stern dad to Batgirl and Robin. He really brings the no pizza unless your homework's done vibe to the table. An alarm then goes off, alerting the team that there's been a break-in at Arkham. The Joker and Ra's had a deal where the Joker would give him his Joker Venom formula in the return of a vial of ooze. The heroes go to stop it, but the Turtles are only allowed to come under the conditions that they follow Batman's orders. They rush to Arkham where the Joker has freed the inmates. He spikes the water with the ooze and turns on the sprinklers, mutating the inmates, turning them all into furries, and for some reason Poison Ivy just turns into a giant plant. The heroes split up to fight the Arkham inmates. Honestly, the sequence was alright. It was fun with a lot of puns and jokey moments, but wasn't anything too special. It felt like a slightly better version of the zoo scene from Batman Unlimited. At one point, Joker and Harley Quinn start tongue wrestling, and I was this close to vomiting, especially since Joker transformed into a cobra and Harley transformed into a wolf, which I didn't need to see this. When they reach the Joker and Harley, Two-Face is shown to be holding some hostages. The Turtles disobey Batman's order to wait, and they attack head-on, causing Batman to get captured as it was a trick. This gives the Joker the opportunity to dose Batman with the ooze and mutate him. He'd still be in his correct state of mind for the most part, so to stop that, Joker mixes the ooze with his Joker Venom and injects Batman with it, turning him into a mad Man-Bat. Man-Batman goes berserk and throws Two-Face through a window, then eats Mr. Freeze. Which is mad because Batman just broke his no-kill rule. He wasn't in control of his body, sure, but I think this is still a big deal, and they don't even address it later. Batgirl brought the anti-ooze from earlier with her, so they had to struggle with Man-Batman for a minute before they finally inject him with it. Joker tries to slither away afterwards, but Batgirl kicks his teeth in. Or I should say, out. But this whole time, the Arkham kerfuffle was just a distraction, whilst Ra's collected the Wayne tech from the Penguin, not this guy, who he had commissioned to steal it since Shredder just kept messing up, I guess. But instead of receiving a payday, the Foot end up killing all the Penguin's goons, and they tell him to fuck off or end up like his buddies. Back at the cave, the heroes discover the plan that Ra's and the Shredder have is to merge the Joker Venom with the ooze to create monster mutants, and use the stolen tech to create a storm which will rain down the formula over Gotham. They figure out that the villains will go to Ace Chemicals to retrieve the components to recreate the Joker Venom, and decide to go there to kick some ass. But Batman wakes up and tells the Turtles to leave Gotham for failing to follow his orders. But instead of Leonardo standing up to Batman as to why they should stay and help, Raphael does. Raph has always been the loner of the group, and due to this, understands Batman to a very high extent, more so than Leonardo in a lot of ways. Even though Raph is more impulsive and less composed, he prefers to do things his own way and work alone, and he ditches his brothers quite often. But at the end of the day, whenever he needs to be bailed out of trouble, they're always there to have his back, and that even though they make mistakes, they won't be able to improve if they aren't given the opportunity or trust to. So Batman agrees as they go out to stop the villains together. The League of Assassins and the Foot fortify Ace Chemicals and turn it into a labyrinth, awaiting the attack from the heroes. The final battle starts off on wheels as the heroes plow through the facility and fight off ninjas on motorbikes, but the villains unleash a gang of mutated ninjas to chase the heroes. At one point, a damn T-Rex and a Foot Clan shiesty pulls up. Baxter is ordered to start the machine, but the heroes arrive with enough time to shut it off before it actually launches. Batman tells Leo and Donnie to shut it off whilst he and Shredder have round 2. Raish intercepts the two and even makes a Jason Todd reference. Oh my gosh. And then he starts fighting them like a damn swashbuckler, which kills me every time. But my laughter stops pretty soon after he breaks Donnie's arm, but Donnie musters up the strength to get to the machine, which ends up flying him into the clouds. But before it leaves the building, Mikey ends up joining the ride. But whilst Donnie goes, Leo locks in and beats up Raish. Shredder is about to hit Batman with a fatal blow, but Batman's able to pull in an assist before Shredder can hit L2 and R2. Shredder's face mask falls off and somehow shatters, even though it's made of tough metal, revealing his face, which had been scarred by Splinter so many years ago. Mikey stops the machine from going off by destroying with his fists, but this causes it to explode and plummet whilst they're mid-air. But they go into shell mode and survive the fall by landing on a blimp. Batman beats the shit out of Shredder, who then goes on to keep monologuing about how he's still unstoppable and is gonna take over the League of Assassins, but immediately gets interrupted by the burning falling machine, which blows up on impact and throws Shredder into a vat of chemicals, very similar to how the Joker was born. Ace Chemicals is about to explode, but the heroes are able to evacuate pretty much everybody as it implodes. Although Shredder is most likely dead, the Turtles recount that this isn't the first time he's cheated death. I mean, have you seen the first TMNT movie? The Turtles say goodbye, Donnie gets Batgirl's Instagram, I don't like where this is going. But before they leave, Batman steals Tobey Maguire's most famous Spider-Man line.
Pizza time.
Then they eat pizza, the end. This movie was super fun. Because I was watching it for a video this time, I was obviously a lot more critical of the story and such, but I really did have a good time. In lots of ways, it had a fan film type of vibe to its writing, and didn't feel officially licensed. There was a lot of spoofy humor in the movie, which is probably why, but even Batman and Shredder round 2 felt like a fanboy's dream. There were obvious parts in the story which they either glossed over, or to me just didn't make sense at all, but I digress. The movie was paced pretty well, so even if it wasn't the best story, I was happy that it flowed nicely, which to me is the most important thing. The animation in the movie was decent, but I ain't gonna lie, the art style didn't work for me here. They would do this thing where some lines would be really thick to show some kind of drop shadow effect on like the abs and shoulders, but they did it with pretty much straight lines, so it just looked way worse than if everything had been the same line weight. The voice acting was also brilliant. Like I said earlier, Darren Criss did amazing as Raph, and I didn't even know that Troy Baker played both Batman and the Joker in this movie, so that was a cool showcase of his vocal range. I'm honestly really happy that I chose this one as the final movie of this video, because I knew it wouldn't be full of heavy stuff that would keep me pondering at night about what I just watched. Nah, this was just a fun crossover movie that had lots of cool fight scenes and fan service. It lived up to my expectations, which weren't super high, but definitely weren't low. So I would recommend this movie, even if you're an adult, because I found it to be extremely fun. And I think that's what matters the most. I do have another question though. All 6 of these movies were pretty different, except for one thing. Batman. Well, I guess for the Penguin as well, since he appeared in all of them. What is the obsession with Oswald Cobblepot? I mean, he's got a series now and everything. But the films that we just went through all depicted Batman in some sort of way. For the past couple of years, I've been changing my view on the character quite a lot. His no guns and no kill rule, his relationship with the Robins and the Bat family, his dependence on gadgets and prep time, and how he treats his peers. And these movies all touched upon some of these different aspects of the character, and did seem to criticize and speak of them quite well for the most part. Whilst I still think Batman's no kill and gun rule is important to his character, it is in black and white, and that was challenged by Batman Dracula if you ask me. Batman kills Dracula at the end of the movie, and that's just the way it is. Dracula may have been undead, but he still was a sentient being that was living a life. Yes, it was an evil one, but it was still alive. I think this counts as him breaking his rule, but I wasn't the biggest fan of the inconsistency with Batman's reactions to deaths in this movie. When he thought the Joker had died, he initially looked very disappointed and affected by this. But then the next day, it didn't seem to bother him at all. And after he killed Dracula, Alfred makes jokes about it and it doesn't even seem to faze him. I know Dracula can be brought back if blood drops in his ashes, but the whole plan is that that doesn't ever happen again. So Batman intentionally killed him, and the movie didn't seem to give him any depictions or signs of trauma at all from this event. or at least that was my takeaway of it. So whilst the Batman vs Dracula was a decent Batman detective movie and was really entertaining and pretty spooky at times, it didn't represent Bruce Wayne as well as I think it could have. The Vicky Vale stuff though, that was pretty good, I enjoyed that, since Batman's mission always tends to come before his relationships with women, but the fact that Batman didn't seem to show the emotion over being involved in the deaths of two people, one of them being his #1 rival, that didn't sit right with me, especially since the movie tried to force in lots of dream sequences of Batman's parents dying, showing the constant torment that murder brings him. These movies also didn't get into too much depth with Batman's relationship with the Bat family. They were present in a lot of these, but were just there to fight. We did get to see some depth in Batman vs TMNT, where Batman tries to shut out the Turtles due to him thinking that they were incompetent, which at least I think if he thought the Bat family members were incompetent, he would do pretty much the same thing. He would most likely do the same thing to keep them out of danger. He also had some important motivational talks with Nightwing when he was at his lowest point in Batman Ninja. Although I initially dismissed Batman Ninja as a cool action movie with less depth than the others, it does take the time to have Batman struggle to believe in his self-worth without his gadgets and technology. In this scene, he genuinely looks crushed, as this is probably one of the first realizations that he's had that he can't be dependent on his technology. When he throws away the modern day cowl, which is half broken, to me it symbolizes his shattered ego and image that he once had, and him ridding himself of it. When he accepts the new cowl from the Ninja Clan, it proved that Batman is more than just his gadgets. Gotham by Gaslight focused more on the detective side of Batman. I really liked how they did this because Batman was still new to crime fighting and it did show. He was able to figure out some info about Jack but wasn't able to get too much due to him being blindsided. Like I said earlier, I prefer stories where Batman isn't overpowered and can actually take damage, and that's one of the things I really enjoyed about Gotham by Gaslight. But honestly, the best thing about it was that it was just a really good murder mystery. But to be fair, pretty much all of these movies ran for about an hour and 20 minutes max, so it would be very difficult to cram too many of Batman's core traits into the story. So the good movies in this list fit in important parts of the character, but at a surface level, whilst the great ones were able to get into even more depth. Also, can we start a petition to shut down Arkham Asylum for good? Seriously, after watching these movies, I'm starting to realize that Arkham Asylum is useless and is becoming a massive waste of money. It's barely an asylum, it's a prison which gets broken out of every other month. Arkham Asylum video coming soon, guys, stay tuned. But yeah, this was both very fun and tiring at the same time. Watching nothing but Batman isn't as mentally stimulating as one would think, but honestly, I can't complain that I get to do stuff like this. It's way better than, studying. If you enjoyed this video, then please like and subscribe. I'm assuming we didn't hit 10k by New Year's, but that is not stopping me one bit. Also join the Discord because I can tell some of you guys are eager to yap and debate about Batman's ear length or something stupid like that, so you guys can go crazy with that in the Discord. Also, I want to give a massive thanks for all the love on the last video. I only expected it to get about like 5,000 views, but you guys crushed that personal goal of mine, so I really do appreciate it. Also, this video is dedicated to Vee Infuso. If you're a Batman fan, which I'm assuming most of you are, then you will know who this is. He, to me at least, has made some of the best Batman videos on YouTube, and 2025 will be his last year of content creation. Vee does not know who I am, and I don't want you guys going over spamming him saying, oh, watch my video, but coincidentally, he announced that he was leaving YouTube around the time that I was recording this video, so I just wanted to quickly dedicate it to him since he's probably one of my biggest inspirations when it comes to making videos on YouTube. And, this is a very Vee Infuso style video. I'm sure he's probably done something like this already, so I just wanted to say thanks, Vee. It's been awesome being a Vee-generate, and I hope whatever you do next in life, you do it well. Also, I do commissions on Coffee, so if you want one, more details will be on there, and yeah, thanks for watching. Oh shit! He's here.